Welcome to Fantasia, home of the Melodious. My name's Azallea, and today, gonna be bringing you guys the update to my Melodious deck. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So starting off, we're going to be playing two copies of Aria, the Melodious Diva. Now Aria provides targeting and battle protection for your Melodious monsters, which is pretty good in certain matchups. And I cut her down from 3 to 2 because you don't really want to use your normal summon on her. You'd much rather use them on Soprano right here, which we're playing 3 copies of. And Soprano has the effect where you can just recover stuff from your graveyard if she is special summoned, and she can also allow you to go into fusion plays as well. So she's definitely one of the more important monsters in the deck. Aria is more defensive, Soprano helps you get your offensive plays going. Now to complement Soprano, we're actually playing 3 copies of Cannon, the Melodious Diva, and also 3 copies of Sonata, the Melodious Diva. Now Cannon and Sonata, if you control a Melodious monster, you can just special summon them from your hand. Unfortunately, Cannon has a restriction where you can only do that once per turn. Sonata does not. But unlike Cannon, Sonata is a level 3, so she can actually be used for XYZs like Cannon can with Soprano and Aria. So there's that. They both have their upsides and their downsides. But yeah, the last couple Melodious monsters that I play is just going to be 1 copy of Elegy, the Melodious Diva. Now she's really just a transmodified target, and same with Chopina right here. So they're both just transmodified targets. If you transmodify your level 4s, you can go into Elegy. If you transmodify your fusion, like Shiberta, which is a level 6, you can easily go to in your level 7, Chopina. It opens up your extra monster zone, so you can kind of go for additional extra deck plays and things like that. She's also really good for just recycling things from your graveyard as well. But Transmodify is really good for Sonata to go into Soprano, so you can add Sonata back to your hand, special summon her, and then go into your fusion plays. So there's that. Alright, so that does it for the Melodious monsters. Next up, I'm going to go into some of the other tech cards that I've run. So most of these are going to be hand traps or like battle traps. So we're going to start off 3 copies of Honest. Honest is very self-explanatory in this deck. All our Melodious monsters are fairly weak, so that's why having access to Honest is pretty good. You can just attack over your opponent's stuff. We're also playing 2 copies of Effect Veiler and 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit for our hand traps. Now, Effect Veiler I run in this deck because of the fact that she's becoming a little bit more relevant now in the game, mostly against like Pendulum decks where they have heavy metal foes Electromite, and being able to just Veiler the Electromite, prevent them from adding, you know, a Pendulum monster from their deck to the extra deck, and just kind of preventing them from, you know, popping a scale and then drawing a card and then astrographing and all that stuff. You stop a lot of their more potent combo plays, so that's why it's pretty good. And then Ghost Ogre, of course, is just here to blow up field spells, to blow up opponent's monsters. It's just a very versatile hand trap. If you have Ghost Stashes, you can play those, but obviously I'm not going to be dropping like $300 for a playset, so yeah, that's it for the monsters, and next off we're going to go into some of these spell cards. Okay, so for the spell cards, starting off, we're playing 3 copies of First Movement Solo. And First Movement Solo, of course, is just a staple in any pure Melodious build, because of the fact that you can just special summon a level 4 lower Melodious monster straight from your deck. Typically, you're going to be summoning Aria if you're going first, but any subsequent turns, you might want to consider summoning out Soprano, so you can add another Melodious monster from your graveyard back to your hand, and then you can go for, you know, possibly a fusion play or something like that. Next off, we're playing 2 copies of Transmodify. Cut this from 3 to 2 for consistency reasons. Transmodify onto Sonata is probably the main play that you want to see. You don't really want to bring out Elegy most of the time, but if you do have an Aria established and you have an extra level 4 and Transmodify, it is something to consider, although it is fairly easy for most decks nowadays to just break the lock. But the reason why I even run Elegy is because it just makes Transmodify less of a brick, so you do have an option to go into her if you do need her. So there's that. And then we're also playing 3 copies of Scapegoat, and Scapegoat helps you to go into your Link summon. So it provides 4 tokens, and that you can go into your Link Spiders, Proxy Dragons, whatever you need, kind of Link climb into your Saryuja or into your Borlo Dragon. So those 2 are probably going to be your big beat sticks that you're going to use to toolbox your way out of certain situations, but we'll get into the extra deck when we get there. I'm also playing 2 copies of Pot of Desires. This is just excellent draw power for the deck, especially because we're running multiples of the most important things, you know, 3 Soprano, 3 Cannon, 3 Sonatas, so you only really need 1 of each in circulation for you to kind of go off on your plays. We can kind of grind things out. We do have a lot of like Revival in the deck, so, you know, Soprano can add things from your graveyard back to your hand, but we're also playing things like Copy of Monster Reborn to help you, you know, summon your Soprano back so you can go for those recovery plays, and you can even establish, you know, Aria back from Arya back onto your side of the field by bringing her back. You can also go for Elegy or Chopina. Fairly easy to bring back the higher level monsters. You can even bring back things like your Shiberto or your Bloom Diva if your opponent happened to get rid of them. And the last spell card I play is just one copy of Raigeki, and Raigeki, of course, is just for the field clears. Our monsters are relatively weak and small, and we don't have too many board wipes in this deck, so playing one copy of Raigeki just helps you cover that weakness. Alright, so that does it for all of these spell cards. Next off, we're going to go into some of the trap cards. So for the trap cards, we're playing two copies of Back to the Front, and Back to the Front is just more revival for the deck. So you can just special summon a monster from your graveyard onto your side of the field in defense position. Fairly good, just keep in mind that Soprano does miss timing, so if you are trying to bring her back to get advantage off of her, make sure that this is chain link 1 and not like anything higher than that. So there's that to keep in mind, but you can also bring back things like Elegy. You can chain it to like, Raigeki or something like that, or during your opponent's end phase you can bring back Chopina, and then on your next turn you can use Chopina's effect to start recovering things from the graveyard, so that's also kind of nice. And then the last couple of traps that we play are just going to be Solemn Brigade. So we play 3 copies of Solemn Strike, copy of Solemn Warning, and the all-time broken card Solemn Judgment. So because Judgment's back, I decided to put in the Solemn Brigade. It's just really nice for Melodious to be able to control what your opponent has on their side of the field. So if they're trying to go for big beat stick monsters, you can stop that. If they're just trying to go and combo off, you can also negate important effects with Solemn Strike. So overall, I found the Solemn Brigade to be pretty useful in this deck, and that's why I also cut Ties to the Brethren. So, Judgment paying half your life points, Warning being 2,000, and then Strike being 1,500. You're going to be paying a lot of life points to negate things. You don't really have enough to spare for Ties to the Brethren and things like that. But yeah, anyway, next off we're going to go into the extra deck. Okay, so for the extra deck, we are playing one copy of Link Spider. Link Spider is just here for the scapegoat. Same with the Proxy Dragon. Most of the time you're not going to go for too many extra deck monsters, so if you make Link Spider with 1 token, you can make Proxy with the other 2, and then if you normal summon like a Melodious monster, and then you can use the last token that you have, the scapegoat token, and those 4 can go into your Saryuja or something like that. We're also playing one copy of Underclock Taker. Underclock Taker is a fantastic card from the new set, probably one of the best Link monsters to come out. It's very generic, it only requires 2 effect monsters, so if you have something like an XYZ clogging up your extra monster zone, you can always use a Melodious monster and that monster to go ahead and make Underclock Taker. Has a down arrow so you can summon your other extra deck monsters under him if you need to. The next monster I play is one copy of Guy Saber, the Lightning Shadow, and he's mostly here as a beat stick, but he's also a really easy way for you to enable you to clear your extra monster zone. So if you activate Scapegoat to your opponent's end phase, and let's say for example you have something like a Fairy Cheer Girl in your extra monster zone, you can use the Fairy Cheer Girl and 2 of your tokens to make Guy Saber, and then you still have 2 tokens left over to potentially go into Proxy Dragon or anything else underneath it to help you just get more monsters and more bodies on the field. He's 2,600, which is not actually that bad. So you can use them as a beat stick. Next off, we're playing one copy of Saryuja. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of it. I'm not willing to spend the money on it right now, but Saryuja is great because it allows you to draw into a bunch of cards, which helps Melodious a lot, and it helps you special summon monsters from your hand, which helps Melodious a lot. So having Saryuja is definitely a must if you're playing, especially at like a more competitive locals. You kind of want to be able to access your monsters in your hand, especially because we're very limited to how we can summon things. You have your normal summon, or you have to have a Melodious monster already on your side of the field in order to summon out Cannon and Sonata and things like that. And the last card I play is one copy of Borreload. Of course, I don't have a copy of this either, but Borreload helps you out big problem monsters that you probably couldn't in other situations, so things like Chaos Max Dragon or something like that, just big beat sticks. You can take them and use them against your opponent, and then after that you can just link summon away with them, so it's pretty good. But yeah, that does it for all of the Link monsters. Most of these you're just going to be making with your Scapegoat, aside from like Underclock Taker, which is pretty generic and easy to make. So next off for the XYZs, we're playing one copy of Bujinte Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi is just great because if you open up too many monsters, you can just, normal summon Arya or Soprano, special summon your Cannon or whatever, make the Tsukiyomi, pitch your hand and draw 2 more cards. Hopefully you're drawing into spells and traps that can help you survive your opponent's next turn before you go off on your plays the following turn. We're also playing one copy of Fairy Cheer Girl for the same reason. You just want some extra draw power in this deck. This deck can't search, this deck can't draw. We're really desperate for those cards, so that's why we also play Pod Desires, which allows you to get 2 cards for essentially free. We're also playing one copy of Baguska. Baguska just helps you stall out a little bit more and just prevents your opponent from activating their monster effects on their side of the field, or at least negating the activation of those effects. And if you have Aria and Elegy on your side of the field, you're actually not really too scared at all, because this only negates activated effects. So your continuous effects of Aria and Elegy will still apply, providing you protection from, destruction and targeting and battle and all that good stuff. So until you get enough resources, this thing can stall for like 3 turns, which is kind of insane if you think about it. But yeah, it can stall long enough for you to try to, draw into your board wipes or draw into your power plays to help you overcome your opponent's field. Next off, we're playing one copy of Tornado Dragon. I don't main deck any spell and trap removal in this deck. You can of course side it if you would like, but Tornado Dragon is just here for us to potentially pop some back row. And I'm also playing the Utopia package, so one copy of Utopia and one copy of Utopia the Lightning. Again, this deck is just revolving around a bunch of small little monsters, so they rely on the extra deck to kind of get over the opponent's beat sticks. And Lightning being a 5,000 attack beat stick where your opponent can't activate effects during the battle phase, pretty nice. Right, so yeah, that does it for all the XYZs. Fairly simple and standard extra deck. Next off, we're going to go into the fusions. So just for the fusions, we're only playing 2 of them, 2 copies, or 2 different kinds. 2 copies of Shiberta. Shiberta is the main one that you're going to go into. You don't really need more than 2. You can always recycle them and put it back into your extra deck with Soprano. So if you special summon Soprano, you can return Shiberta into your extra deck, and that's all good. And then we're also playing one copy of Bloom Diva. So Bloom Diva is just there as kind of utility. In most duels, you're probably not going to be summoning her, but if you do want something to occupy your extra monster zone, Bloom Diva is probably the best monster to do so, because with Bloom Diva and Arya on your side of the field, you're basically going to be in a pretty strong position. You're going to be attacking over your opponent's special summon monsters, inflicting some burn damage to them, and all that good stuff. But yeah, anyway, that does it for the extra deck, and that does it for the deck profile. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Melodious content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.